Okay, so we've covered a few things before regarding loading and saving. I'm just going to take a few seconds here at the beginning to go over a few things. There is a view control up here that will throw your app into full screen if you want. I'm not going to do that right now because it changes how the windows behave a little bit. You only really want to do that if you want to see what your scene looks like in true full screen. With no interface components around or taskbar, none of that. Unhide tools is very handy in case any of these guys should get hidden, like so. You can unhide them. You will, some of you will notice that these windows, in some cases, can collapse. When they collapse, other items around them should try and fill in the screen space. Now there's a master hide over here right now until I make a better menu for hiding individual components, but you can simply reduce the animation if you're going to use it a little bit, you just want to see. If you try and move a window around, it's just going to go back to its docking station. I haven't made windows so that they can be undocked yet. You can hide everything, which is one of my favorites. Once you get going, you'll notice that your right-click menu and your upper menu still works. If you want to get everything back, again, you can hit, there's an old hotkey for T, but forget about that. Just get used to the unhide all for now. So that's a quick overview of that part. When it comes to using the screen, you've got some camera modes, and normal camera is what we're in now. If you hold down the control key, you'll notice your mouse gets locked. That's to remind you you're in this mode. If you left click the mouse, you can pan and tilt the camera. If you right click the mouse, it will still open up this menu. But in this mode, if you hold down the middle mouse button and move your mouse in and out, you're now rapidly zooming and panning the camera. Sorry, not panning, you're strafing the camera. So here you have Dolly, which is in and out, and pan is actually strafe now. Whereas if it's just left click, pan, and look up and down, hold the middle mouse button, you've got Dolly and strafe. Now, if you were to hold shift, it doesn't really do much in here that you can see, but there are other modes that shift will kick in. But you know, you don't want to hold those keys down all the time, so you can go into free camera. That's like having the system hold the control key for you, and that's handy when you want to start using the arrow keys to move around. As you can see, I can move the arrow keys quite well. Now you'll notice that the steps in the arrow key are quite large, as seen here, and the mouse wheel moves a prescribed amount. Now if I page down, use the page down key, the speed or the step size of the arrow key movement is reduced as I get lower. You can see here that's quite fine. You can increase it in size again here. I'll just up it. Now if you're not sure what your settings are, you can come over here and you can show your camera HUD. That'll show you your camera position. It'll show you your zoom. The default zoom for a nuclear fusion engine is actually 2. Anything between 1 and 2 you get a bit of a fisheye. Now the camera speed or step, as you can see, is increased in smaller increments using the page up and page down button. If you want to move it in larger, hold the shift button and you'll notice it moves much faster up and down, which is good for changing your step size with working with terrains that are just huge. Again, when you're moving the camera in and out, if you were to just hold the shift with the arrow keys, it's quite something. The shift multiplies any movement by 10 in any of the camera modes. The arrow keys will even work in normal edit mode like we're in now. Now, there is another camera mode I want to touch, which is Orbit Cam. This makes the mouse move camera object around the mesh. The mesh itself isn't moving, it's the camera that's moving. You can get right close and look underneath, and it's really handy for getting a quick visual inspection. Now there's a hotkey for that, which is N. There's a hotkey for free, which is V. That goes back to those of you who are familiar with the earlier nuclear fusion viewer that was made by Matthew. I just kept those keys. The V key was from that, and N was just a key that I used a while ago. Now, there's another mode there, which is Direct Rotate. Now, I'm just going to make a cone here so that we can see this. And one of the things here, we're just going to grab that, click once, left click, allows you to move it up, click again, sets its position. We're going to get into this in a minute. And you're there. And that's Sticky Gizmo, that mode. But anyhow, we'll get into that in a minute. What I want to do is just get closer. Okay, so here it is. If we were to go into Direct Rotate, you don't see much of anything. Everything looks the same. You can still move things and edit them, but in Direct Rotate mode, which is warned up here, if you hold down the control, instead of moving the camera around, you're directly rotating the entity, the thing that you have selected. This can be very handy. Now this is where the Shift key kicks in, because if you'll notice, holding Shift makes it move on its local Z axis. Now, I'm just going to hit reset, which will put it right back to where it started. We're still in Direct Rotate, but if I go in Global, the neat thing about local mode is you'll notice that the gizmo orients with whatever you're working with. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to reset that again. But we're working in local now, and that's important when you add things to meshes, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but you want to pay attention to that local and global. So let's just go into rotate, but you want to pay attention to this local mode. Most of the time you want to be in global, but if we go and rotate this here, you can rotate the mesh in Sticky Gizmo mode quite easily, if you notice. And the neat reason why I created Sticky Gizmo, and my preference is, if I don't like where it is, simply right click and you're back where you started from before that edit session. And say I want to leave it like that, left click. Maybe I want to rotate its Z axis, I'll just do that. And you know, that's kind of interesting. I like it like that. Now here's an interesting other tool here that I built in. If you go to global, we're going to put this back in global, you'll see that the axis of your tool represents global. You can save, just click that a couple times. You can save the position, the rotation, and scale of that entity. So now I'm just going to turn it a little bit. We're going to go to scale. Now right now, because of how the nuclear fusion engine works, scaling must be uniform, and I'll get into that later, but for now your scale needs to be uniform. And there is a way to edit non-uniform, but we'll get into that a little bit later because it involves a setting on whether you mouse clicking and selecting and the system is working. That's because P3D actually uses a physics engine inside itself for controlling things and selecting. So we've moved the scene and how we're looking at this, and we're just going to recall its position now. Went back to where it was before we started. That's kind of simple. You're going to notice that there's some other tools that we're going to get into. Not right now. Your help, which is as updated as I can make it, can be launched from here, but the website is updated faster than this. This is an interesting one. If you have a selected entity, you can launch this, and this will tell you the name and various internals that, if you're familiar with the nuclear fusion programming language, this will help you examine the entity and see what's going on, and maybe diagnose some problems that you're having. I'm going to hide the camera grid. You can show your FPS. It's a little bit lower right now simply because I'm using video capture and some things that I have turned on in this build. And we'll get into that. You can show your scene lights too, by the way. You can be able to view the default lights. You can create a light when we get into creation stuff later over here. Anyhow, that's just a quick intro to the scene and some things that you can expect.